Mikeitz Paro has a dream, and he's by the Nile. The Nile is the Egyptian, is what the dollar is to Americans. The Nile was the Egyptians. You know, the dollar says, "In God we trust." You know, but in small print on the dollar it says, "In God we trust." Somebody should put in there, "But the dollar we worship." You know, so the dollar was we trust Hashem, but the dollar is the deity. So the what do you call it? Paro has a dream, and he dreams that he's by the Yor. The Yor is what we call the Nile. Now, the first idea here is we're going to see, and this is a basic Torah concept. We're going to see that as a result of this dream, Yosef's going to come out of prison. Okay, now here is a very basic point of confusion by many people. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? In other words, Paro had a dream, and therefore Yosef came out of prison to interpret his dream, right? That's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is Yosef had to come out of prison now. And therefore the thing that got Yosef out of prison was Paro's dream. Right, what comes first over here? What's the cause and what's the effect? Is Paro the cause or Paro's the effect? So, you know, Cleveland just got slaughtered in a big game, right? Where, you know, there's the big game and Johnny Football goes and he botches up, you know, and it's 30-0. I had the fans must have been on the edge of their seat till the end of the game. That was a real nail biter over there. So, see, you know, now what comes first? Well, they played the game and therefore Cleveland lost, or because it's Cleveland has to lose. And the only way, they happen to lose because they played a game, you know. But at the end of the day, you know, it wouldn't have been a game, so Cleveland would have lost some other way. One way or another, Cleveland's going to lose. You know, what's the cause and what's the effect over here? So in Jewish life, there's a lot of confusion. I think the classic example was there's a guy, there's a 4-year-old kid fell off a roof in Israel a few years back. Kid fell off a roof and he got a bad head injury. There was a Hatzalah guy there nearby. Managed to pick up the kid, take him to the hospital. They got him into surgery, and they were able to save his life, Baruch Hashem. So the doctor said, you know, it's a good thing the guy was there. Had he come in 10 minutes later, the kid would have died. That's what they said. Okay. So everybody said, wow, it's a good thing the Hatzalah guy was there. So Rav Shach Zatzal said that you got it wrong. The kid had to fall, or the parents had to go through the anguish of having their kid come within an inch of life, an inch of death. Everything that had to happen. Had the Hatzalah guy not been there, so the kid would have fallen a block away from the hospital instead of a mile away from the hospital. And somebody else would have brought. You understand, what's the cause and what's the effect over here? Is it, it's because of the Hatzalah guy, the whole story ended up differently, or was there a bigger picture here, and the Hatzalah guy happens to be one factor in the picture where if it wouldn't have been him, it would have been somebody else. So our attitude, that's our attitude. You know, there was a remarkable incident that took place. You remember the Hebron massacre in 1929? There was a famous massacre in the Hebron Yeshiva. The Yeshiva, the Hebron Yeshiva, they killed over 60 Bachim were killed. So there was a guy who used to go collecting money for the Hebron Yeshiva, and he did some recruiting. So he went to Chicago. There was a very wealthy man in Chicago named Wexler. And he went to this Wexler. Wexler had a son, and he was about 16 years old. And the guy convinced him that the son, you know, there's no real education in America at the time. Send him to the Hebron Yeshiva. So he sent him off to the Hebron Yeshiva. 3 years later, they had the massacre, and this Wexler boy was killed in the Hebron Yeshiva. So he came back so the guy, this recruiter, realized that the father blames him because it was his idea to send the kid to the Hebron Yeshiva, and he avoided going to Chicago at all costs. He avoided Chicago because he just couldn't face meeting the father. A few years later, he's in New York, and that Mr. Wexler from Chicago happened to be on a business trip. And he runs into him, and he says, Yitzchak, I haven't seen you in a few years. I've been to Chicago in a while. So he looks at me and he says, yeah, the truth is I've been avoiding Chicago. He says, why? He says, well, truth to tell, you know, I'm trying to avoid you because I know that you blame me for your son's death. He says, you are as wrong as could possibly be. He says, his son, there was a decree that his son had to die. His son could have died as a public school kid in Chicago, or he could have died as a yeshiva bacher, learning Torah and becoming a Talmid Chacham in Eretz Yisrael. So to the contrary, he gave him the privilege of having a son who now has become a Torah scholar. To die, he was going to die anyway. If it would have been that, it would have been something else. That is the Torah attitude. So over here, the mistake is, who's the central figure? Well, Paro has a dream, and then Yosef, as an afterthought, comes out of prison to help him out of his dream. No, that's not what happened. Yosef had 2 extra years in prison because of his lack of, well, we spoke about that lack of bitachon that he had. Now it's time to come out of prison. If it wouldn't have been that, they would have released him, they would have opened the door. No, because Baruch Hu manages to roll events in such a way that not only it's going to get Yosef out of prison, it's going to promote Yosef to the kingdom of the country. So Paro has a dream, and the first dream is that he sees these 7 stalks, having healthy stalks of 7 healthy cows, which are then swallowed up by 7 thin, frail cows, and there's no memory whatsoever of the 7 cows. Then he has a dream of 7 stalks of wheat that are then swallowed up by 7 thin stalks of wheat. Those are the 2 dreams that Paro has, one after the other. So look at pasuk ches for a second. Paro gets up in the morning. Vayikatz Paro v'nei It's about 6 lines from the bottom on page 222. It says Vayikatz Paro v'nei Paro wakes up and it's a dream. Now the word oketz in Hebrew, is to sting. The word oketz means to sting someone. Vayikatz means to sting. Ever wake awake? You're startled awake. Vayikatz Paro. Paro. You know, we wake up more or less like a flower sprouts, right? We wake up more like Paro. Vayikatz. You ever have a dream and also boom? You jump up. That's Vayikatz over. Paro has a very disturbing dream. Number 1. Number 2. Just as I heard this from Rabbi Tatz, which is a very, very good piece of advice, a very easy piece of advice, very good piece of advice. If you're ever in a situation, you wake up in the morning and you'd really like to sleep a little extra, which means every single morning, right? Okay. Now, so it's not fair to decide to sleep more while you're horizontal. You have not even entered a state of test. There's no test over there. I mean, the chances of deciding to sleep longer when you're horizontal, you've got a 99-1 against you getting up, especially on a cold, frigid Yerushalayim morning, and it's warm under the blankets. So, Rabbi Tatz, I do one thing. Sit up, get vertical, and then if you want to go back to sleep, go back to sleep. Make the decision from a position of neutrality. Don't make the decision from a position of definite loss. Get neutral. Sit up. That much you could do. Stand up. That much you could do. Go to the bathroom. That much you could do. Now make a decision. You want to go back to sleep? Go back to sleep. But first, give yourself a chance to make the decision. You haven't even given yourself a chance to make the decision. There's a story about a rabbi, and it's a simple. What do you call it? It's a very, very simple piece of advice. Sit up. Then see how the world looks vertical. Yeah. I don't like that world. Then you go, okay, I understand. We go through that every day. Especially but if you have an opportunity, at least to give otherwise you never give yourself a chance. It's a very, very interesting story. There's a rabbi who had to go to the train station to greet somebody. But this man who he had to go greet had once done something wrong. He had spoken out against some other rabbi or something, and he said, you know what, according to halacha, I really should not go pick him up at the train station. So you know what he did? He got into his wagon, drove from his village down to the train station, and at the train station he decided, you know what, I shouldn't pick him up, turned around and went home. Why did he go to the train station? Because at home he's concerned. You know why what's really motivating me over here? What's really motivating me is the fact that I don't feel like I'm too lazy to go down to the train station, so I'm finding an excuse. Go down to the train station. That much you could do. That has nothing to do with picking him up. Go down. Now make a decision. Now make a much more, and you'll see that often those decisions in life change. You'll see how much those decisions in life change when you actually decide. Get up and see first. You're not in a position of being able to make a judgment. That applies in many situations in life. In many situations in life. If you have to spank your kid, don't spank him when you're angry. Not allowed to. According to Allah, you can't punch your kid when you're angry. You know that? The Vilna goes, if you hit a kid when you're angry, it's like hitting somebody for no reason. You're not hitting him for him, you're hitting him for you. What are you hitting a kid for when you're angry? What are you a criminal? And if somebody gets angry and goes and shoots a place up, so a guy in America just killed 6 people. In America just killed 6 people. Killed his ex-wife and her husband and his mother, his ex-mother-in-law, his ex-sister-in-law, and her husband and a kid. His ex-Marine, he was upset. So they say, well, he's got post-traumatic disorder. Yeah, well, I hope so. He certainly got something. Now, if you're ever upset, you can't spank your kid. Wait until you're calm. And then when you're calm, say, does that kid need a spanking or not? Now you're in a neutral position. Then you could use a little bit. If they need a spanking, you spank them. I heard about Reb Chaim Brisker, I think it was Reb Chaim Brisker, who walked over to one of his sons and he gave him a slap. What was that for? He says, last week you were chutzpahdik. Well, what do you slap me now for? He says, because I first calmed down now. I've been upset for a whole week. Now I'm calm. So I'm good.
Take away from the point, like your kid doesn't know.
It's only so you're right. You're absolutely right. You can't walk up to the kid. First you go, oh, by the way, last week, you were chutzpahdik. At least tell them what you're doing it for. Yeah, but the point he's making the point that not when you're upset. I used to tell my kids, I always tell fathers, if you got a pacha, once in a while you got to spank a kid, not too often. Shouldn't have to spank any kid more than twice or three times in a lifetime. Really shouldn't have to do more than that. It really shouldn't come to that. But daughters, yes, but you can't spank them. Daughters you should spank every day, but you can't. You can never hit the daughters. So the daughters we use other techniques because daughters could drive you up a wall. But sons, you shouldn't have to spank them for what you go. But when you do spank them, you have to make sure you're calm. I always told my sons when they needed one, I always told my sons, I'm going to hit you. You're going to get patched now 4 times. You give them a number 4 times, and then when you do, you have to breathe. You don't have to grit your teeth. Right? That means you're angry. Just like you're running a marathon. Boom, 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 and you have to say a number because if you don't say a number and you're upset, then you can actually get into a rhythm. Hey, and then last week was the principal called, and the day before it was the milk at the table, and you glued your sister to the wall. You open your mouth to mommy. And you really get your weekly exercise. You get too easy to get out of control. It's too easy to get out of control. So you have to save your bullets, and then it has to be done very calmly. When I was angry at my kids, what I used to do when I'm really upset, so I would do is I would patch the bed. I would actually patch the bed or the pillow. Right next to him, he'd be lying there. I'd just go patching the mattress. I can't patch the kid right now, but I can patch that mattress. And sometimes that was worse. The kid was like, Daddy, okay, won't I go, but I can't hit him. I'm not allowed to hit him at that point. You're not allowed to. You have to have. It doesn't mean I never have, but you're not allowed to. Your kid does something dangerous, you have an obligation to spank him. Kid is like 3-year-old walks into the street. My 3-year-old, I remember the first time he ever tested my oldest son. I said, not the street, not the street, not the street. One time he walked right over to the curb, and he kind of just looked at me, just kind of put his foot right down in the street. Right? So very calmly I marched him into the house, gave him a good couple of good. Hasn't crossed the street by himself since. He's about 24 now. He won't go. So you have to be very, very careful because I'm doing it for the kid. I'm not doing it for me. I'm playing a game over here. You want to play games? I'll show you. Don't even play games. You don't play games in the streets. You understand? That's the so Paro wakes up with a start. Vayikatz Paro v'dechalam. Now, Paro's very rattled by these dreams. Look at the next word. Vayiba boker vatipoem rucho. Very strange word. 6 lines from the bottom. He wakes up in the morning. How does the article translate it? He was agitated. The word I would use is he was rattled. He was rattled, and the word vatipoem comes from the Hebrew word pa'amon. Pa'amon is a bell. You ever, when you're rattled, just like something's rattling around inside you, you're just so agitated. You're completely unsettled. Just he's rattled. Well, what's really bothering Paro here? Something about this dream is bothering him terribly. Now, what's bothering him? So, where do dreams come from? We remember what we said with dreams? Dreams are generally a result of your thoughts, your experiences. What you eat affects your dreams. If you eat some good spicy salami before you go to sleep at night, and then you have a dream that you're being chased by Italians. So a lot of it can be affected by what what you dream, what you eat, your experiences, what you're thinking about. So Paro's a king and an ancient world monarch. What do you think an ancient world monarch is walking around thinking about all day? What's his number one primary thought?
Staying monarch.
Staying monarch. How to rule over the people. That's right. Staying monarch. Right. When you get elected president, the first thing you do is think about is how to get reelected. Right. So he's thinking, I'm the monarch. These are the poor. These are the commoners, and I dominate them. You have a dream that the stronger ones are being swallowed by the weaker ones. That's not something he was thinking about. It could be it crossed his mind once in a while, boy, I hope there's not a rebellion over here. I'm sure monarchs think about that. But generally it's a coup from powerful people that there's a plot to overthrow. Here is a man who walks around all day thinking about how to dominate his country. Also, he has 2 recurring dreams. And each dream is a symbol of the downtrodden overcoming the powerful. That's not something he thinks about. So therefore, that's obviously there's something to the dream, number one. Number two, the Egyptians give him interpretations. Now take a look again, Pasuk. Vayiva boker vatipoim rucho, vayishlach vayikra es kol chartumei Mitzrayim. He calls the wise men of Egypt, ves kol chachameh, vayisaper Paro lahem es chalom vein poser so lefaro. There's nobody to interpret them for Paro. Now the word chartumim is a fascinating word. Rav Hirsch says in Hebrew, you know how you say to carve something? Choret. Chartumim is the root of the word is charat, is to carve. What did the Egyptian wise men do? Ever see the hieroglyphics? They were the ones who did the carving into the wall. It was the Egyptian wise men. The hieroglyphics apparently are very sophisticated. There's always somebody looking like this, right, in the hieroglyphics, and there's always like a dog with the head of a snake or something. All these weird things that they have. But there's a tremendous wisdom in the hieroglyphics, and it was carved into a wall. That's the chartumim. That's a chartumim. Choret means to carve. They're called chartumim. The first 3 letters of the word charat. The root of the word is to carve. Those are the chartumim. So the Torah says they didn't interpret it liparo. What do you mean they didn't interpret it paro? They did interpret it. What do you mean they didn't interpret it? It wasn't like they were clueless. So Rashi brings down over here, well, they did interpret it, but Paro wasn't happy with the interpretations. Now there are what do you mean you're not happy with the interpretation? I'm telling you what the dream means. You're not happy. I can't make you happy if you're being chased by Italians and I tell you, well, it looks like the mafia's after you. Well, I'm not happy with it. Okay, your team's going to win the championship. It's not like we have a choice over here. So Rashi says like this. Well, they said to him, the 7 cows represent 7 daughters, and the 7 weak cows represent that the 7 daughters are going to die. They say to me, and that's one attempt interpretation. The other attempt is you're going to conquer 7 countries and they're going to rebel against you. Then Yosef comes out of prison and Yosef says, no, sir, what it means is that you're going to have 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. Now I want you to go into any bar in Scotland, go into any tavern in Scotland where the occupants have already well on into what they do in taverns. Okay? I want you to give them a multiple choice test. Tell them the dreams and tell them 3 possible interpretations. The cows and the wheat represent daughters, they represent countries, or they represent prosperity. What do you think they're going to guess on a multiple choice in a tavern in Scotland? Oh, daughters. Yeah, no, that's what they're thinking about. I think that the chance of saying that it represents prosperity, considering meat and wheat are the 2 most basic staples of a diet, is a lot closer to the interpretation than daughters and countries. Okay, but if it's a choice of the 2, that seems to be, the interpretation was not that phenomenal. The bigger miracle is they missed it, not that he got it. Which you see is a recurring pattern over here, because that's what happened in last week's parsha too. The guy says, well, I had a dream. In 3 days, I had a dream that I'm squeezing 3 vines into a cup and I'm putting the cup in Paro's hands. And Yosef says to him, in 3 days, you're going to be putting a cup in Paro's hands. That was the interpretation. Wow, phenomenal. What a shot. That's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. I mean, that's such a magnificent interpretation. The miracles that they couldn't figure it out. So the answer is that sometimes the miracle in life is not that people see things. The miracle is other people are blinded. Absolutely blinded. So many people fall for Madoff. They're blinded. Wait, nobody thought to investigate, and they think you're getting a 20% return on your money, and and it's all kosher because he said so. Nobody thought to investigate. You find situations in life where, how did anybody not notice that? How did anybody not see that? And sometimes the miracle is not what you saw, it's what everybody else didn't see. That's the miracle. You stayed neutral. Everybody else was just out of there. They get completely blinded. Number 1. Number 2, You see, the commentaries say, how does Paro know that they've missed on the dream? First of all, you got to be pretty gutsy to tell the king of Egypt, oh, by the way, those cows represent your daughters. You know, that's quite a gutsy call. You know, but even more than that, how does Paro know they're off? How does he really know they're off? So the Mefarshim say, you see, the Medrash says, Paro dreamt the dreams and he dreamt the interpretation, but he couldn't remember the interpretation. Did it ever happen to you that you're trying to remember somebody's name? You can't remember his name. What's his name? And I said to you, it's Mike. No, it's not Mike. Jeff. No, it's not Jeff. It's Steve. No, it's not Steve. Alexander. Yeah, that's it. How do you know? You couldn't remember it. The answer is, I knew enough to know what it isn't. And when I hear it, I'll know it. And it's even more annoying when you're trying to remember a tune. How does that tune go to the Zemiros? And then there's somebody next to you who's going, no, be quiet. That's not it. You know, you're trying to think it in your mind, and then when you hear the tune, that was it. And there's no better, oh, it felt so good. You know, like almost a relief, which, by the way, is what happens to you when you learn Torah. Why is there a good feeling when you learn Torah? When you finally, ooh. So the Gemara says that the angel teaches us Torah in the mother's stomach. By the way, that stuff about the clef, that has nothing to do with the angel. The Gemara doesn't say he slugs you. The Gemara says he touches you on the lip and you forget it. It doesn't say he crunches you one.
Is this a crunch or a touch?
I don't know, but if it was a touch, it's a pretty good touch considering it stays permanent. It doesn't say anywhere that he touches, and if he does, there should be fingerprints. Right, and then 9 Jews should not have the touch, right? As I come in, that's not, it doesn't say. It says he touches you on the lip. It also doesn't say above the lip, he touches you on the lip. I don't know what it means. Whatever it means, it's not this.
He only teaches Jews in one.
So let's say he teaches Jews, maybe he teaches potential converts as well. I don't know. But what happens is when you learn, you've been taught it already. So what's the point of being taught the whole Torah and then forgetting it before you're born? The answer is that then when you recall it, you get that sense of, because it's really something you've learned before. A lot of it is that sense of, So Paro knows what the dream isn't, doesn't remember what the dream is, but he knows enough. When Yosef says it, that's it, yes, that's it, keep talking, kid, that's it. Okay? So Paro has a dream and he's rattled. And in the ancient world, you do not want the monarch in a bad mood, because it's unpredictable what happens when monarchs get in a bad mood. It's not like nowadays when the president's in a bad mood, so he got to go lock himself up in the White House. Here, the monarch's in a bad mood, heads roll. So Paro is upset, and then the butler comes back and says, oh, by the way, take a look at 224, second line from the top. Vishami tanu nar ivri. He tells him, me and the baker had dreams. Vishami tonu nar ivri. There was a Jewish Hebrew adolescent there. Eved l'sarat tabachim. He was the servant of the butcher. V'nesaper lo. We told him our dreams. Vayiftar lanu es chalamoseinu. He told us he interpreted our dreams. Ish kachalamo posar. And he interpreted correctly. Now, you'll notice he calls him a nar ivri. The word nar, I translate as an adolescent. When you hear the word adolescent, what's your gut reaction to adolescent?
Not mature.
Foolish, not mature. That's not what the word means. That's not what the word means. An adolescent just means a teenager. Adolescent's a teenager. He's in the years of adolescence. It's an age. It's a description of a stage, not a description of a behavior. Yet in the vernacular, if you refer to somebody as that's adolescent behavior, that's where we get it from, because you're behaving like a teenager. And to call somebody a teenager is not necessarily negative, but 99% of the time it is. Right? Teenagers are this undefined creature, somewhere between half child, half man, half undefined. We don't know exactly what a teenager is. Sorry, we don't know what a teenager is. I'm assuming everybody else is out of that stage. So an adolescent always. If I say, well, I saw these 3 adolescents on the street. Well, you picture 3 teens with torn blue jeans doing illegal drugs. That's what you're picturing. Say the 3 adolescents, you're like 3 teens wearing ties on their way to work. That's not what you're picturing. So he uses a term, na'ar, the word term which means youth, really comes from the Hebrew word minu'ar, which means empty. That's why a youth is called a na'ar. He's empty. He doesn't have life experience. He doesn't have anything in it. He's willing to walk the streets of France with his brother, and make foolish decisions like that. That's what a na'ar is, So a person who is, he is speaking his mind, but he hates the Hebrew so much that he's got to throw in a little jab over there. Well, we had this adolescent. Why does he do that? Why does he do that? He understands, he realizes, if you come out as he's also read the fairy tales. He knows what happens when you come out of prison and you do the kings, you make the king happy, what happens to you? You get promoted. So he knows this guy's on the cusp of stardom over here. And the idea of having him promoted over him, nobody likes to see. The whippersnapper, is all of a sudden he's your starting pitcher. Nobody likes to see that. So he says he interpreted a dream. So what does Paro do? He says, bring him here. He's so desperate. I'll take the kid out of prison. I'll take a teenager out of prison. Let's see. Okay, Yosef's not a teenager. Yosef's 30 years old now. He's 30 years old. So Yosef comes to Paro. Now watch this. This is remarkable. Take a look at Pasuk Tefsvav 15. Vayomer Paro el Yosef. Paro says to Yosef, Chalom chalamti uposer edos. I had a dream, and there's nobody to interpret it for me. I heard that you interpret dreams. Yosef is standing in front of Paro. He's been in prison for 12 years on a bum rap. His freedom rests on what he says now. His whole freedom is based on what he's going to say now. And not only his freedom, probably his life. Because, you get one chance with the king. Don't mess up. He says, I heard you interpret dreams. What's the first word? What would you say? Imagine it was you. I say, I heard you interpret dreams. What would your reaction be? What would your reaction be? Usher, what would your reaction be? I heard you interpret dreams. You're Yosef. What would your reaction be?
You say, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, I've been known to come up with a couple of good ones once in a while. Yeah, you want to try to stay a little humble, but make sure you don't blow the chain. Yeah, I've had a couple of good calls. That's what I would have said. What does Yosef say? First thing, he contradicts Paro. First thing, he contradicts it. Vayan Yosef es Paro lebor. Yosef says to Paro, Billah died, it's not me. First thing, contradicts him. I heard you interpret dreams. No, heard wrong, it's not me. To a monarch and the Egyptian president, and the president probably got the whole royal court there. And they're all going, right? Because it's not me. Elokim Yanesra, it's God. Oh, got a religious fanatic. Throw him to the lions. Well, yeah, I haven't got time for this now. If I wanted a cure, if I go to our Samach. That's all I need is a Musar Shabbos now. I need somebody to interpret my dreams. Guy's a religious fanatic. There's another nut who sees flying saucers. Get out of here, will you? Do me a favor. So Yosef says, no, it's not me. It's Hashem. So the commentators say, how did Yosef do that? I mean, boy, that's something. That's really something. I mean, to come up with to come to kind of. The answer is, when you're a Yosef who's raised by a Yaakov Avinu, Yaakov's the man of truth, the man of principles. You've been raised and had principles instilled in you. You're a Yosef who could run away from a Mrs. Potiphar. If you're a man of principles, hey, king, with all due respect. You ever hear that expressed? One of my favorite expressions. With all due respect then means you can say whatever you want to anybody at any time. Right? And if anybody ever says that to you, by the way, it means you're about to be insulted. With all due respect, just get ready. Just go into a defensive position because you're about to get a good blow. With all due respect, sir, I feel you are completely incompetent to be doing this job. With all due respect, you are a total and utter incompetence. Right? You ever see that teacher? With all due respect, sir, with all due respect, I really don't think you should be the principal of this school anymore. I think that you have no idea what's flying here. So Yosef says, where do you get that from? Because he's a man of principles. He's been raised by Yaakov Ishemes. It's not me, it's God. Let's get this straight right off the bat. Let's get this straight. It has nothing to do with me. It's God. You want God, I'll give it to you, but it's nothing to do with me. So Paro immediately starts telling Yosef his dreams. He gives Yosef the dreams over here, and then Yosef goes and he interprets the dreams to Paro's likings. Then, well, we have to end with this, but the Yosef, I'll leave you with a question. We'll continue this next time. Yosef says to Paro, in Pasuk, he interprets the dreams. It means 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. And then in Pasuk Lamed Gimel on page 226, Yosef says, Ve'ata yere Paro ish novon v'chacham, find a wise man, v'shiseyu al eretz Mitzrayim, and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. I don't read the Pasuk. I read the Pasuk as, Yosef says to Paro, find a wise man and put him in charge of Mitzrayim. Right? Which wise man do you think Yosef has in mind over here? Paro's like, he's looking at him open mouth. So there are two questions here. Question number one is, you were called to interpret the dream. Who made you the advisor? Who made you the advisor? I didn't ask for your advice. I asked you to interpret my dream. Now that you've told me there are going to be 7 years of famine, 7 years of plenty, 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine, so then I'll deal with it like I deal with everything else. Why? Who asked you to give me advice? Where did you cross that line, which often happens in life? It often happens in life. You ask somebody for their opinion, they give you an opinion, then they give you advice. I didn't ask for your advice. I just give me an objective answer. Do you think these curtains are nice or not? No, I don't think so. What I think you ought to do is I think you ought to really put a board across. Just ask me. I asked you about the curtains. I didn't ask for your advice. Number one. Number two, Yosef has already learned from bitter experience what happens when you make effort on your own behalf. Stayed an extra 2 years in prison. So why does he seem to be making an effort on his own behalf over here to get himself? Did you learn your lesson already? Just spent 2 years in prison. You haven't learned anything? Those are two questions. We'll have to continue that next time.